Meanwhile, the People's Bank of China has reduced the reserve requirement ratio for almost all banks by a quarter of a percentage point today, and this is going to reduce the amount of cash that banks must keep in reserve with the central bank. It's going to help banks lend more and, in effect, strengthen the economy. The new rates are going to be effective from the 27th of March. The People's Bank of China had last cut rates by 25 basis points in December last year. But talking about China, the Chinese President Xi Jinping is going to fly to Moscow next week, and he's going to meet President Vladimir Putin in his first visit to Russia since the latter launched that invasion on Ukraine, and that happened more than a year ago. The visit is going to be seen as a powerful show of Beijing's support for Moscow in Western capitals, where leaders have grown increasingly wary of the two nations' deepening partnership as war rages on in Ukraine. It will also be Xi Jinping's first foreign trip since securing an unprecedented third term as president of China at that annual meeting of China's legislature that took place only last week. Remember, the visit comes days after China brokered that peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And as we keep watching developments on what China is aiming to do, let's get in perspective as well. Anil Trigunayat, his former ambassador, who's joining us on the show, along with Manoj Joshi, distinguished fellow at ORF. Manoj Joshi, thanks for joining us. First to you, in terms of what China has been able to do in brokering that deal, now that they are moving towards Russia and Xi Jinping is scheduled to visit, and of course, in the light of everything that's happening on the Ukraine war, this is going to be a show of support by China towards Russia. But in terms of a strategic kind of move by China, what are you reading here?
Well, I think, the Chinese official spokesperson said that China's position can be summed up in one sentence, which is to persuade peace and promote talks. So they're trying to emphasize that China could play some kind of an honest broker in all this. But the fact is that by visiting Moscow at this time, I think Xi Jinping and China have kind of, that balance that they were trying to maintain, saying that we are neutral. I don't think that they're trying to position themselves as mediators, but that's not going to work, because all said and done, China has yet to say anything about the actual invasion, meaning they have struck, Washington has accused Beijing of providing lethal support, but Beijing has rejected that. And after the visit, the Chinese say that President Xi Jinping will talk to President Zelensky. So they are trying to position themselves as kind of mediators. Last month they also gave a 12-point proposal for mediation, but it's not really sounding very credible.
Anil Trigunayat, do come in on this. This is happening at a time that India, for one, has decided to not take sides as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. But now, with China sliding up towards Russia, and it's an obvious move, do you think there would be a change in India's foreign policy at this stage?
I don't think so. As you know, India's position has been sui generis, and it is a position which is principled and basically looking to have its own strategic autonomy. And therefore, I don't see any change. Of course, Russia is our special and strategic comprehensive partner and privileged strategic partner. And with Russia, we have very deep rooted ties, and Russia has stood with India. So India is trying to somehow end the war, like whichever way it's possible. Prime Minister Modi has been conveying, talking to both Putin and Zelensky. NSA had discussions with the Ukrainian representative also about this. So at the same time, as a G20 chair also behoves upon India, besides we are going to hold the SU summit as well in a few months' time. So I think that this is India, position of India is not going to change as far as Russia is concerned. But of course, China is trying to play a much greater role at the moment. They are buoyed by the success that they have between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which is a very major achievement, I would say. And of course, before that, the credit must also go to Oman and Iraq. in that they were playing, trying to bring them together and playing some kind of a role. So Saudis and Iranians, both of them were talking to one another. It was there. So China is now, after the President Xi Jinping's third term, obviously he wants to play a role of an honest broker all over the world in all major conflicts. They have also talked about in Palestine. So I think that this is something which is very important. But I am more concerned more than this visit which will take place. And I think that, very often we forget that China also has huge interest in Ukraine. And that is why Zelensky is willing to listen to Xi Jinping whenever he talks to him with regard to right now this 12-point peace plan is not acceptable to either side, neither to the Russians overtly nor to the Ukrainians. But I think that if the Americans, who have been also looking at China to play some kind of a role with Russia and also with India in that, so I think that because of the Chinese interest, investments, continued.
Sure.
I mean, in Odessa, for example, China is a major player, and so I think that this is very interesting.
So yes, indeed. Dr. Joshi, do weigh in on this. As far as China is concerned, they may be trying to broker a deal, something that will help lead to the end of a war. But how much of an effort do you see China making in trying to counter the impact and the power that a NATO alliance has in forming an alliance that has Russia on board as well? Do you think China could make that kind of move and this could be the beginning of it?
I think, first of all, as an honest broker, Beijing lacks credibility. That 12-point proposal that they gave for ending the war, it has had all kinds of things. It included calls for talks, ceasefire, end to unilateral sanctions, but there were no demands for Russian withdrawal from Ukrainian territory. So what kind of a mediator is it that, what kind of credibility will China have with the Ukrainians, for example? As far as the other issues are concerned, to what extent China could assist Russia? Well, Russia doesn't have too many friends these days. So in that sense, whatever help that they can give would be welcomed by Russia. Don't forget that the China-Russia bilateral trade is expected to exceed 200 billion soon. This will be up from 140 billion in 2021. So much of the growth has come from Beijing has bought up Russia's commodities, helping to offset some of the declines in Moscow's oil and gas export to Europe. So like this, as of this stage, China is Russia's only option, meaning whether it is semiconductors or I don't know whether some kind of clandestine supply of defense equipment is also going. But I think the Chinese are trying to make the best of a bad deal. They also don't have too many options right now, given the manner in which Western Europe, United States, Japan have united, in the face of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Well, there are certainly these moving pieces right now, and they will keep changing over a period of time. We'll see exactly what transpires within that meeting that is to take place between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. And it'll be interesting to watch exactly how policies change, how foreign policies change, even from an Indian context. We'll keep watching that situation. Manoj Joshi and Anil Trigunaya, thank you indeed for joining us on this edition of Rush Hour.